Hey, welcome back. It's Alex, and today's tutorial is called Artificial Depth of Field Creates Interest. And let's go ahead into Adobe Bridge and get started. So we can see a file called autumn.jpg, and let's go ahead and right click that and then open in Camera Raw. Once Camera Raw opens with our image, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the basic settings that we can adjust to give this image a little bit more color and contrast and more of a happy vibe. So first thing I want to do is take a look at our white balance, and as shot is fine and temperature and tint are fine. And basically the rest of these settings are going to be subjective tweaks that I feel make the image better, but however you want to expose your image, that's completely up to you. So let me just jump through some of these settings and get the image looking the way I want it to. I'm going to set the exposure to 1.8. I'm going to bring the highlights down. Just bring the skin back. Okay, I like that. Play with the shadows a little bit. Let's bring our white value down. And just add a little bit more depth to the blacks. Okay, it looks pretty good. And I always like to turn clarity up just a little bit. It gives a nice sharpening effect. So let's go ahead and crank that up to somewhere in the 20s. Okay. And when you're happy with the image, go ahead and select Open Image and take this image into Photoshop. Okay. Once we get into Photoshop, our first step is to duplicate the image. I'm going to name this image Original. And I'm going to take the original layer and holding down the mouse button, I'm going to take it onto the new layer icon and just release it. And that's going to create a duplicate. And let's go ahead and name that Retouch. Okay. Now, what we want to do to create an artificial depth of field, we want to blur the background. And when our subject is in focus and the background is out of focus, that creates contrast and distance, and that's going to bring our subject forward. So what we want to do is isolate him, and let's use the polygon lasso tool, and we're just going to draw a nice selection around him. Okay, as soon as we finish our selection, let's go ahead and copy our subject onto another layer. So we're just going to do Control C for copy and then select paste. Okay. And we can see there he is. Now, on the retouch layer, I'm going to rename this Blur. And let's go ahead to our filters. And let's select Gaussian Blur. Okay. And let's crank that up a little bit higher. Okay, that looks pretty good. I like that. Let's go ahead and accept that. Now, another way to create depth and contrast is to desaturate our background. So let's create a new saturation layer, and hue saturation adjustment is available here. And I'm just going to turn the saturation down, -20. Let's go a little bit more. Okay. I like that. And I'm going to turn the opacity of this layer down. Okay. Now what I want to do is this tree that's in the front, this should be a little more in focus compared to these other areas. So I'm going to go to our blur layer and I'm going to create a layer mask. And let's grab a nice soft airbrush. Okay. And let's just turn the opacity down, maybe 30%. And let's just bring some focus back in here. Basically, I'm masking the blur layer and letting the original layer breathe through. This ear will be on the same plane as our subject, so I feel like it should be in focus, and then as the image moves away, then there'll be more of a blur effect. And our final step, I want to just create a little bit of grain in the background so that way it has the same texture as the rest of the image. So let's go ahead and click down Alt and open up the Layers tab. And let's name this layer Noise. And let's set the mode to Soft Light, and let's say Fill with Soft Light Neutral Color 50% Gray. Okay, and now let's zoom in to 100% so we can see what we're doing. If you look carefully, you'll see like a little noise in these darker areas, and we just want to mimic that same texture in our background so that the image feels consistent. So I'm just going to go to Filter, Noise, Add Noise, and bring up our noise dialog box, and let's take a look at the amount that we want. And we're trying to match the same level of camera detail. So whatever your camera produces, just try and match that. And what I like to do is I find one that's similar. Let's say if it's 9, I'll go to 18. And I'll say OK. And I'll run a soft blur filter on it one time. And I feel like that gives a nice, that cuts it in half and gives a nice texture. And just add some grain to the image and makes it look a little bit more authentic. Let's take a look at our original. And here's our retouched image. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you guys like this technique and can use it for your holiday photos. Please stay tuned to the KEH Photoblog for more tips and tutorials. Bye bye.